It all began innocently enough, with a typical weekend spent in my grandmother's attic going through dusty boxes. I had no idea that a supposedly lost artifact from the past would drag me into an unexplainable web of paranormal terror. My grandmother had recently gone away, leaving her old house to be processed and emptied by the family. She was an eccentric woman with a tendency for collecting oddities. I was ready for a sentimental trip through long-forgotten memories as I ascended the rickety wooden attic ladder. But what I discovered would shred the very foundation of reality. With its collection of worn-out clothes, antique photo albums, and odd objects that seemed to be telling stories about earlier times, the attic was like a time capsule. While searching among the mementos of my grandmother's life, I noticed an older and worn cardboard box concealed in a shadowy nook. I came across it among the tattered documents and broken vinyl records. An old cassette tape labeled, simply Thanksgiving 1987. Excited about the possibility of discovering a fragment of my ancestry, I cleaned an outdated tape player, placed my headphones in, and hit the start button. The tape's first crackle was replaced by a chorus of far-off giggles and clinking silverware. A seemingly typical Thanksgiving party was created by the muffled noises of family members mingling. I could clearly hear the voices of my younger self as well as those of my parents, aunts, and uncles. The tape was a priceless window into the past, when things were easier and our ties to one another as a family remained intact. The Thanksgiving feast's festive atmosphere surrounded me while the tape played on, taking me to another time period. But gradually the warmth gave way to a disconcerting undertone. Amidst the giggling and chatting, an odd noise could be heard, a low grunting murmur that sounded as though it came from somewhere beyond the celebration. I changed the tape player's level, attempting to ignore the strange sound as a recording error. However, the murmur became increasingly audible as I strained to make out the source, blending into the recorded discussion. It seemed like an ancient voice was attempting to cross the boundaries of time and place. The unexplainable whisper turned into audible words at the halfway point of the tape, an eerie chant that chilled my spine. My family members' voices started to sound warped, and their happiness was replaced by a spooky sound that seemed like it came from out of the tape. I listened on, terrified but powerless to pull myself away. The tape's clamor intensified, its tempo creating an eerie rhythm that eluded comprehension. It was as though the repercussions of an old ritual were being felt in the present, and it had been inadvertently recorded on the magnetic tape. The recording suddenly took a terrifying turn. My family members' voices, which had been joyful during the holidays, now turned sorrowful. The menacing chant that filled the air caused their words to become frenzied and their sentences to break apart. It was as if some unseen force had settled over that Thanksgiving dinner, lowering a shadow over the happy family reunion. The cassette player gave a gasp full of static before going dead. I was left feeling confused by the strange silence that had taken the place of the lively sounds of the past. The chant's icy reverberation permeated the space, as though the ghostly tape echoes had been absorbed by the very air. I stared at the old-fashioned cassette player, trying to make sense of the terrifying reality of what had happened to me. The routine task of going through my grandmother's possessions had revealed a paranormal mystery, a mysterious connection between a Thanksgiving event that dates back decades and an alien presence. I went out on a quest to track down the strange cassette's origins, because I was determined to learn the truth. I went back to the family house and asked relatives about Thanksgiving 1987, but all I got in return was uncomfortable looks and quiet exchanges. It appeared as though my family was unwilling to remove the shroud of mystery over the events of that day. Not to be deterred, I searched for hints in old photo albums and home recordings. The family members' happy smiles appeared to be frozen in time in the photos, but a shared discomfort was hidden in their eyes that cut through the joyous exterior. It was as though a silent agreement had sealed their lips, masking the dark underbelly that spoiled that Thanksgiving meal. My grandmother's old diary was discovered when I dug further into the family archives. Yellowed with age, its pages detailed the events leading up to that fateful Thanksgiving in 1987 and the days before the celebration. A mystery stranger who claimed to be a long-lost relative had paid the family house a visit, according to her notes. The visitor had insisted on attending the Thanksgiving festivities despite his disheveled appearance and eerie atmosphere. My grandmother, who was well known for her generosity, had sent out an invitation in spite of the family's misgivings, not realizing the paranormal sequence of events that would unfold. The diaries detail the peculiar conduct of the stranger during the Thanksgiving feast, including the strange symbols engraved on the palms of their hands, the way their eyes seemed to linger on every family member, and the murmured chanting that reverberated through the hallways. And with a rising sense of dread, my grandma had recorded this story of discomfort and foreboding. The day following Thanksgiving, the diary ended abruptly, allowing us to speculate about what happened to the enigmatic stranger and what impact their presence had. I searched the attic again, determined to solve the riddle and discover any evidence of the stranger's presence or the events that followed that fateful day. Beneath a stack of faded linens in a dusty corner, I found an old suitcase that didn't look like it belonged with the rest of the stuff. A bottle of dried herbs, a small, ornate box, and a weathered tome bound in cracked leather were among the strange artifacts I saw as I opened it. A musty smell of age permeated the room. The box seemed to emanate an alien aura, all decorated with elaborate markings. I reluctantly opened it, but felt forced to because I saw a set of rusty silver keys within. There was an aura of antiquity about each key, carved with curious marks that suggested a deeper meaning. The atmosphere in the attic changed as I looked through the suitcase. An unseen weight descended upon the space, and shadows appeared to dance along the walls. The air itself seemed to hum with a ghostly presence, as though the items in the bag held the answer to the questions that had bedeviled my family for many years. I had an unexplainable urge to play the mysterious cassette again, and this time I did so with the silver keys by my side. I noticed a strange reaction when the eerie chant came from the cassette player. The symbols on the keys appeared to flash with an ethereal glow, reacting to the eerie music that filled the room. In that epiphanic moment, I understood that there was an innate connection between the cassette and the suitcase, a connection created by the otherworldly energies that had invaded that Thanksgiving dinner in 1987. It appeared that the keys were a channel for the ghostly forces caught on camera, and that the secret to their secrets would be the key to lifting the curse that threatened my family. I picked out a key and gently pushed it into my hand with some anxiety. The markings etched on the key seemed to gleam with an otherworldly light as the metal touched my skin. The cassette's chant grew louder, its ghostly resonance building to a crescendo that reverberated throughout the attic. The energy in the air around me crackled at that instant. The luggage began to hum softly, as though in response to the ancient powers at work, and shadows began to blend together into blurry figures. I experienced a strange connection to the events of that long-ago Thanksgiving, as if the very fabric of reality were warping. There was a dazzling light in the attic as the spectral energy peaked. I covered my eyes because I could not believe what was happening to me. I saw flashes of the past in that bright emptiness, a brief glimpse of the enigmatic stranger, the symbols on their palms, the family members captured in the clutches of an invisible force. I found myself standing in the attic as the light faded, the cassette player silent, the symbols on the keys fading. After being filled with ghostly energy, the luggage looked normal again, as though the otherworldly powers had been subdued. There was a peaceful silence as the weight that had gathered over the attic lifted for no apparent reason. After being stirred by ghostly energy, the shadows withdrew to the corners and the atmosphere returned to normal. It felt as though the mysterious events of that Thanksgiving were finally resolved, and the curse that had followed my family for decades was removed. Following the paranormal experience, I told my family about the visit from the enigmatic stranger, the diary kept by my grandma, and the ghostly relationship between the silver keys and the tape. Despite some early skepticism, there appeared to be a collective sense of relief upon learning of the revelation. My family's unwritten secret agreement had been violated, and the truth, however strange, had emerged. Once again hidden in the attic, the bag with the silver keys and the cursed tape were securely packed away. Our family's history was changed by the mystery surrounding that Thanksgiving in 1987. It was an unpleasant story that defied explanation but had a happy ending in the present. I carried the weight of the paranormal encounter with me as I walked out of my grandmother's house. Once a storehouse of long-forgotten memories, the attic was now the setting for an eerie play that took place outside of time. The ghosts of that terrible Thanksgiving had been silenced, and the curses of the past had been faced. But even when I emerged into the daylight, I couldn't shake the unease that was still there. I couldn't help but wonder if certain mysteries were better left unsolved, their secrets hidden away in the shadows of time, for the mysterious forces that affected our lives appeared to linger on the edge of reality. It was Thanksgiving weekend, and my pals, who were never one to shy away from an unusual experience, made the decision to go to a private function in the city center. An enigmatic meal dubbed the Silent Feast enticed us all with the promise of an amazing evening full of fine dining, immersive entertainment, and mystery. And to venue, a stately estate rich in history and situated between tall skyscrapers, provided a striking contrast to the contemporary cityscape that enveloped it, and out in a black envelope sealed with crimson wax. The invitation said nothing more than the Silent Feast, where words fade and shadows speak. The mood inside the home was electric with anticipation as we pulled up. Each participant in the exquisitely attired line that snaked through the mansion's magnificent entryway was welcomed by a masked attendant who guided them inside. Excitement permeated the air, but there was also a hint of anxiety that suggested there was more going on than an elaborate supper. The mansion's interior was lavish, the polished marble flooring glowing ethereally from dimly lit chandeliers. The guests moved through the huge corridors decorated with elaborate tapestries and antique paintings, their conversations muffled in the hushed dance of shadows. It seemed as though the mansion itself held secrets just waiting to be revealed. We were led inside a long, imposing table that spanned the length of the dining hall. The silverware on the table sparkled in the candlelight, and it was covered in immaculate white linen. With a solemn reverence, the attendees, a varied mix of people from various backgrounds, took their places. A black-clad, masked man materialized at the head of the table as we were getting comfortable. The figure signaled for everyone to take off their masks as the room went still, highlighting the importance of the stillness that would envelop the evening. We obeyed, our curiosity piqued, and what emerged was a sea of faces illuminated by the gentle glow of the candles. When the first course was served, the mouth-watering flavors temporarily overshadowed the strange ambiance. But as the night wore on, it became evident that this was no typical feast. The visitors developed an unusual intimacy as a result of the lack of spoken communication, an understanding that went beyond words. A masked performer moved with a disquieting ease into the room halfway through the dinner. We were enthralled with the silent dance of shadows and motions that took place. We were mesmerized by the silent craftsmanship that was being displayed in front of us as the dancers seemed to communicate stories and feelings without saying a single word. The mood in the room changed as the last course was served. A silence descended upon the diners as the disguised man at the head of the table stood up. The figure said, "The culmination of the Silent Feast will take place in the mansion's hidden ballroom," and a voice that seemed to come from the shadows. Driven by a mutual inquisitiveness, the participants trailed the veiled individual through obscure corridors, ultimately reaching a vast ballroom tucked away in the mansion's interior. Candelabras glowed in the darkness, creating lengthy shadows that danced around the walls. The individual wearing a mask disclosed that the ultimate significance of the Silent Feast was found in the last ceremony, a symbolic deed that would culminate the event and unite the attendees in a mutually exclusive knowledge. The figure produced a small, elaborate box and set it in the center of the room without saying anything else. The person droned, a figure motioned for each guest, one by one, to approach the box as suspense mounted. I looked into the package with a mixture of interest and anxiety, just like the others. It held a variety of old keys, each one special and beautifully crafted. Each key, according to the masked figure, symbolized a secret that the participant would reveal in a symbolic gesture of vulnerability. After selecting a key, the visitors had to whisper their secret into the darkness and place the key into a concealed chamber inside the box. A flickering light from the candles lit the faces of the guests as they came closer to the box one by one. Whispered admissions filled the room, some frivolous, some tinged with an unvarnished emotional honesty. The atmosphere grew thicker as the ceremony progressed, as though the weight of our shared secrets had descended upon us all. When it was my time, I selected a key that appeared to be calling to me. It was a little, deceptively shaped object. The atmosphere seemed to absorb my words as I revealed my secret into the darkness, the stillness heightening the impact of my admission. I placed the key inside the box and heard its metallic clang echo in the silence. After all of the guests had completed sharing their secrets, the masked person declared that the Silent Feast had come to an end. And with that, the figure vanished into the night, leaving us there in the darkened ballroom, united only by the unwritten agreement we had made. A mood of uneasiness descended upon the room as the visitors exchanged looks. Once concealed in the darkness, the shared secrets now hung in the atmosphere like a melancholy tune. The mood had changed from excitement to a subdued fear, as though the mansion itself bore the burden of all our revelations. As everyone started to scatter, they were all still processing what had happened during the ceremony. The guests' once close relationship felt strained, their unspoken kinship clouded by the weight of their shared vulnerabilities. I could feel the echoes of the silent feast echoing in my mind as I made my way down the dimly lighted hallways. I couldn't get rid of the sensation that something had changed, not just in me, but also in the silent feast itself. As I walked around the estate again, the shadows clung to the walls like they were hiding secrets too complex to fathom, and the air seemed filled with an unspoken tension. The ensuing days were characterized by a persistent feeling of anxiety. The memories of the silent feast seemed to be clouded by the shared secrets that had previously only existed in the shadows. I couldn't shake the impression that the home itself emitted a quiet resonance, as though it was bearing witness to the private revelations that had taken place inside its confines. The recollection of the silent feast persisted in the back of my mind for several weeks. I felt as though the old key I had selected that evening had a ghostly presence, a reminder of the unspoken agreement and secrets we had exchanged. I was stuck with the impression that the silent feast had permanently altered my memory. Then one night, as the streets were covered in deep shadows from the city lights, I got a strange message. One day, a letter with red wax seals and no return address showed up at my house. I discovered one old key inside, the same one I had selected for the silent feast. A disturbing message was written in a beautiful style on the accompanying note. The shadows remember. My spine tingled at the realization that the silent feast was more than just an occasion. Rather, it was a portal into a world where mysteries were lurking, just waiting to be revealed. Tormented by the mysterious encounter, I looked for explanations. My investigation took me to the mansion's past, where I discovered stories of a scandal-filled and secretive time in history. It appeared that the estate was well known for arranging events that went above and beyond the norm. My investigation into the mansion's past led me to tales of a hidden society that had previously gathered in the mansion's great halls for enigmatic ceremonies. The group, dubbed the Silent Watchers, had faith in the ability of open communication and quiet to reveal secrets and create irreversible ties. Though shrouded in secret, the society's rituals were claimed to conflate the otherworldly with the everyday. Like the one I was holding in my hands, the old keys were said to be channels for the ghosts who haunted the estate and carried the secrets of all the people who attended the silent feast. I couldn't shake the sensation that the silent feast had revealed something extraordinary. As the realization dawned, the mansion's secret ballroom and dimly lighted hallways gave off a sense of being haunted by the secrets of its past, and the antique keys served as a tangible link to an inexplicable past. I was driven back to the home one fateful night by an invisible force that made me face the ghosts of the past, and I was haunted by the mystery surrounding the silent feast. The echoes of the silent feast echoed through the darkly lighted corridors, and the air in the enormous rooms felt infused with an otherworldly force. I felt apprehensive as I got closer to the secret ballroom. The old key in my hand felt as if it were pulsing with a ghostly presence. The chamber had a strange quiet that verged on the paranormal, even in the faint glow of the candles. The elaborate box stood in the middle of the ballroom, exactly as it had done during the silent feast. I could feel the weight of the shared secrets that hung in the shadows as the memories of that night came flooding back. I took a deep breath and cautiously unlocked the box, letting the old key drop inside with a metallic clang that broke the stillness. The environment changed as I did. In reaction, shadows appeared to dance, seemingly assuming a life of their own. An unearthly chill descended upon the room as the temperature fell and the air crackled with an energy that could not be seen. A ghostly voice that seemed as though it were speaking from the shadows resounded in the ballroom. "The silent feast has awakened the spirits within," it said. "Acknowledge the secrets, and the shadows shall speak." A menacing vibration appeared to come alive in the room. The air was charged with an unearthly energy as shadows merged into blurry shapes. It was as though the silent feast had opened a portal to a reality that defied description, and I felt a connection to something that lay outside the purview of comprehension. I came to understand that the whispers were the quiet confessions of the quiet watchers, reverberating around the darkened ballroom. It appeared as though the mysteries of the past and present were coming together in a dance of mystery and shadows. The silent feast was a recurring tradition that connected the worlds of the living and the dead. For those who ventured to communicate their secrets, the mansion's secret ballroom and antique keys acted as a conduit. I experienced a deep connection to the silent watchers and the unspoken agreement that bonded us together through time as the spirits spoke their confessions. On tapestry of silent relationships and shared secrets was revealed as the mysteries of the silent feast unfurled like chapters in a ghost story. There was a peaceful silence in the ballroom as I stood there, as if the shadows were moving away. The acknowledged and heard ghosts of the silent watchers vanished into the invisible realm, their whispers echoing through the atmosphere like eerie music. On the palace, with its opulent hallways and secret ballroom, was once again in a peaceful state of repose. Even while the mystery surrounding the silent feast would always be a part of the mansion's past, it appeared to remain dormant, waiting to be discovered by the next unwary person. I was filled with wonder and fear as I left the mansion, haunted by the event. The silent feast had gone beyond the commonplace and created a portal to the otherworldly. It was a voyage into the core of mutual silence and confessions. The old key, now a relic of the past, was a physical reminder of the silent agreement made in the dance of mystery and shadows. The recollections of the silent feast followed me into the city streets like a specter. The mansion became a part of my own history, a chapter in a novel that merged the paranormal with the real world, with its ghostly echoes and secrets. As a quiet witness to the mysteries that were being revealed in the center of the big estate, I carried the weight of the quiet feast with me as the city lights flickered in the distance. The acknowledged and heard secrets that were revealed in the shadows left a lasting impression on the fabric of my own life. I stood outside the ancient farmhouse, feeling the brisk fall wind and seeing my breath. As a family, we had chosen to spend Thanksgiving at my uncle's country hideaway in order to escape the busyness of the big city. I had no idea that this holiday would stick in my memory for far more unusual reasons. Situated on the periphery of a small town, the farmhouse had a rustic beauty that appeared incongruous with the contemporary conveniences it provided. Our Thanksgiving celebration was made more nostalgic by the occasional creak of the historic structure and the creaky floors. We had no idea that the very remnants of the farmhouse's history would weave a terrifying tapestry that would enfold us in a chilling embrace. My family and I sat around the dining table as the evening sun sank below the horizon, throwing deep shadows across the fields. The farmhouse was filled with the smell of roasting turkey and the sound of loved ones laughing. It was the classic Thanksgiving scene, one of coziness and camaraderie. But as we began our Thanksgiving meal, an odd feeling of uneasiness descended upon the farmhouse. There was an unexpressed tension in the air, as though the walls themselves held secrets too strange to reveal. I wrote off the foreboding sensation as an artifact of the farmhouse's age, putting it down to the peculiarities of an old structure. With the last of the Thanksgiving meal being cleaned away after supper, my cousins and I made the decision to explore the nearby fields. We felt more of an adventure as we headed into the unknown because of the ethereal glow the moon cast over the scenery in the chilly air. Bathed in silvery moonlight, the fields unfolded before us like a vast canvas. The sounds of the farmhouse gradually faded as we walked, and the night became strangely peaceful. Then, beneath the shade of an overgrown copse of trees, we happened upon an old grave. The graveyard appeared to be a relic from a bygone period, with its worn tombstones and crypts covered with ivy. We were intrigued and moved closer to the moss-covered stones, using our fingertips to trace the names and dates. The weight of memories that remained in the shadows made the air in the graveyard feel thick. We found an old family plot with an unusual gravestone. Among the tombstones, the name Eleanor Worthington and a date that matched the late 1800s were inscribed on the worn-out plaque. As we stood in front of Eleanor's grave, the quiet in the cemetery seemed to grow, and I felt a strange chill run down my spine. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves as we thought about the mystery gravestone, bringing with it a melancholy music from a distant piano. The sound seemed to emanate from the farmhouse, a ghostly waltz of notes flitting through the darkness. Feeling both uneasy and intrigued, we traced the eerie tune back to the home. The atmosphere buzzed with an unusual intensity, and the melodies got louder as we got closer. The song served as our guide through the poorly lighted hallways of the farmhouse, which appeared to be hiding something. It was now completely dark. We found the source of the eerie piano music, which was a forgotten parlor hidden in a farmhouse corner. With its worn wallpaper and old furniture, the space gave off an air of timelessness. An ancient piano stood in the dark light, its keys moving in unison with the mournful tune. The menacing melody was performed on the piano with unsettling accuracy as we gazed on in amazement. The bench was empty, but the keys continued to turn as though someone was holding them. The sound of the old-fashioned tune echoed through the parlor, bringing with it the weight of long-forgotten memories. The mood in the room changed abruptly. An unearthly chill descended as the temperature fell and the air appeared to be charged with a ghostly energy. The echoes of the past seemed to be manifesting in the present as if the very fabric of reality had thinned. A gentle glow enveloped the room as the ghostly piano playing continued. Ethereal forms of shadows moved along the walls, perhaps whispering stories of bygone eras. The farmhouse held us captive in its ghostly embrace, now a stage for a supernatural symphony. A voice sounded through the room as the eerie music reached its crescendo. It was an otherworldly voice that seemed to be speaking from beyond. It whispered things about love and sorrow, about a woman named Eleanor Worthington, and about a bygone age that sent shivers down our spines. The voice seemed to originate from the farmhouse's walls themselves, as though Eleanor's story's echoes had merged with the structure's very nature. The ghostly concert went on, each note confirming the past's continuous presence. The room was filled with the energy of a bygone period, as the ghostly piano continued to play, and we were unable to tear ourselves away. The eerie music prompted the shadows to dance in a phantom ballad that made it difficult to distinguish between the living and the dead. The parlor was silent as the piano's final notes drifted into the night. We were filled with fear and wonder as the brilliance faded and the shadows drew back. But the farmhouse, now enveloped in the stillness of the night, seemed to release the ghostly music that had temporarily released Eleanor's spirit. We went back to our rooms, haunted by the paranormal encounter, the ghostly piano's echoes still echoing in our minds. The farmhouse, which had previously been a representation of warmth and family, now had a ghostly quality about it. The supernatural has left an enduring imprint on the present, resulting from the bleed-over of the past. The farmhouse had an odd silence about it for the next few days. The piano did not play, and Eleanor's story appeared to lie in wait in the shadows. The ghostly parlor remained in our memories as we ate Thanksgiving together again, a silent reminder of the unexplained happenings that had taken place in the ancient farmhouse. The eerie tune continued to play in my nightmares in the ensuing weeks, a ghostly coda that reverberated with Eleanor Worthington's secrets. Enthralled and unnerved, I investigated the farmhouse's past and discovered lore about Eleanor, a woman who had resided there in the late 1800s. It appeared that Eleanor's tale was one of both love and sorrow. She had been a gifted pianist who had tragically lost her sweetheart. Her days were spent playing the piano in a long-forgotten parlor. Time stood still for her love, as evidenced by the reverberations of her song and the weight of her grief that persisted within the farmhouse's walls. The sensation that Eleanor's ghost had reached out to us that Thanksgiving night, using the piano as a channel to transmit the echoes of her past, persisted as I worked through Eleanor's story. Eleanor's love and sorrow were preserved in the farmhouse, which was transformed into a hallowed space for the paranormal. The melancholic tune evolved into a phantom symphony that united the living and the dead. The farmhouse, with its dilapidated parlor and crumbling building, had evolved into a doorway to a world beyond our comprehension. Even though Eleanor's narrative was unnerving, there was a cathartic release of feelings that had been trapped in the ghostly hallways of the past for a long time. I'm reminded of the farmhouse and the eerie song that seemed to exist outside of time as I think back on that incredible Thanksgiving. Even though the meeting was mysterious, it had a lasting impression on how I perceived the unexplainable. Some stories, like haunting melodies, remain long after the last notes have faded into the night. Eleanor's voice echoing in the corners of my memory reminds me of this.